Welcome to Jon Auctions Games. Today I'm going to talk about the games that are no longer in my collection. Recently I sold 27 games. 22 of them went to a live board gaming auction. And I'm going to discuss my top 10 most disappointing games from that overall chunk of 27, explain the reason I was excited to get the game and the reason ultimately I got rid of it. And at the end I'll briefly tell you about the 4 games I picked up at the auction. So let's jump right into it. Number 10 is Bang the Dice game. Now, if you've been watching my channel, you've seen that I did a review of it, and I was pretty unhappy. And the reason this is way high on the list is because I didn't actually fully expect to like the game right from the get-go. I heard really good things, but in general, I don't love games with lots of deception and potentially lying. But ultimately, that's not why I didn't like this game. It was just too random, too quick. There wasn't even moments to really do tactics. It kind of just felt like the game played itself. We played it a couple times with my group and nobody liked it, so I really don't understand where all the hype came from. Obviously a lot of people are enjoying this game out there, but it totally flopped with us, unfortunately. Number 9 is A Duel Betwixt Us. This is one of the many Kickstarter games that I've received throughout the years, and I wasn't really expecting to like the gameplay mechanics of this game. I will be honest, I bought it because of the crazy art, and you've got that crazy cover, and it's just wonderful stuff and ideas in the box from a thematic standpoint that you're both dueling and you're hitting each other with fish, and oh, now we're just gonna throw our shields at each other, and really goofy stuff like that. And inside of it, it actually had a really interesting resource gathering mechanism where there were 3 different values of resources and you could move your little workers according to them, so you could get cheap stuff really easily, but you could slowly move them to the higher value ones, but you have to kind of invest your time. So there's a short-term to long-term kind of thing you're doing there. I like that. And then right after that you go into the duel, which, I don't know, it just felt really dry and kind of, it just fell flat considering this game looks ridiculous, and you would say the name of the duel, but then you just look at your little number and their number and you see who wins and then you get rid of it. It felt pretty anticlimactic, and ultimately I think I really enjoyed the idea of the game way more than I actually liked the game. Number 8 is Archon, Glory and Machination. This is yet another Kickstarter that I've backed, and I was pretty excited about it because it had a very cool worker placement idea where you have a bunch of regular workers, but when you play them out, you have a hand of cards and you play a card with it, and the card says what kind of worker that is. So you effectively have 4 different kinds of workers in the game, and that seemed kind of fresh and interesting to me. Instead of just having workers that do whatever, this is a special worker and it can like copy its thing, or it can go where somebody else is. I like that idea a lot. But then I got the game and I put the board out on my table and my eyes just exploded out of my head because it's so busy. There's so much going on. You can barely see where you can actually put your workers down. And then there are 4 different resources in the game, and they're gray, black, tan, and brown. And then the 4 player colors are gray, black, tan, and brown. They're the same colors. So now you're like, is that a player color? Is that a resource? Is that black or gray? And is it, oh my gosh, it was so confusing just to try to play. And on top of that, there was also a building that essentially allowed 2 of the 4 different roles to be the same thing, so now you're picking from 3. It was the church, and oh man, I played it a couple times and it was a total flop each time. It was way too much like hard work. I really wanted to like it, but the game really got in its own way. Game number 7 is Nothing Personal, yet another Kickstarter board game. And I was pretty interested in this one at first because it has a very cool idea where you have this big deck of randomized thugs and mobsters, and they go into a pyramid on the board, and the higher up they go on the pyramid, the more powerful they get, and the very top is the crime boss. And they're going to get killed or taken to jail, and then everybody kind of shifts up, and you don't actually own these cards. You put your influence down on the cards to kind of temporarily own it, and multiple people are influencing back and forth. What ends up happening is it becomes very backstabby, which should be blatantly obvious. The name of the game is called Nothing Personal, and I did not really enjoy how backstabby it is, which is completely my fault and not the game. I don't actually knock the game for any of its mechanics. I think it's quite solid, beautiful art and awesome component quality, but it just didn't really work for me. Number 6 is Argent the Consortium. Yes, it's another Kickstarter. And if you've watched my BGG-Con impressions from last year, you'll see that I had quite a few problems with it. It seemed way too long for what it was. It seemed way too complex. It was really, really hard to strategize because points came from everywhere. There appeared to be some pretty broken combos that you can put together. We just got steamrolled by one player who was able to place like all 4 of their people down and all of the bell tower cards before myself or the other opponent were able to get more than 3 people down. It was just, it just didn't work, and honestly I never played it again. I got my Kickstarter version and I just sold it fully punched. I really hope the person who gets it is going to enjoy it. I'm not saying that the game is bad, it just really didn't work with me, and I think that I would have very much enjoyed it if it had been like 75% of what it was, and I didn't really feel like trying to shoehorn it in or make any variants to make it work. Instead, now somebody else will hopefully enjoy it. Number 5 is not a Kickstarter game, it is Sail to India. This is one of the many kind of micro-ish games that AEG has been putting out recently, and this one was supposed to be a really quick Euro game, like a 15-minute Euro game. And what it ended up being was incredibly confusing, incredibly abstract, and really not engaging for me at all. I came into this quite excited for it. I like that idea. Oh, maybe 15-20-minute Euro game, get those gears going. But now what I've kind of realized is that you really can't get those gears going in 15 minutes. Maybe there's a game out there that does. This game tried, and it just felt like it ended too soon, but at the same time, I already wanted it to end. It has so many weird things going on where the cubes are so multi-purpose that you really don't feel any connection to the theme of sailing ships or selling cargo or anything. It was just really hard to teach and get into, and ultimately, I decided it wasn't for me. Number 4 is Potato Man, and I actually talked about this one in one of my John Gets Excited segments. I was very excited for this idea of a trick-taking game with asymmetric decks. That sounded so neat. You know, the red deck has all the high cards, the yellow deck has all the low cards, but it has a card that can kill the highest card, and it also has this neat idea where you intentionally don't follow suit. You cannot play a suit after somebody else. What ended up happening is, well, first of all, we played it 5-player, and that completely did not work at all. And I played the 4-player game a couple times, and it just did not engage me, and I'm starting to feel like I might just not like trick-taking games that much. I have diamonds up here, and, you know, it was okay. It had a couple interesting twists, but I think that a trick-taking game with twists is not something that I'm really finding myself very interested in. I'm going to keep diamonds because it does play up to 6 quite well, and I've enjoyed playing it a couple times, but it didn't really grab me, and Potato Man specifically really did not grab me. It felt like a really neat idea that just did not really work for us. Number 3 brings us back to Kickstarter with A Study in Emerald. Now, the idea of this just totally blew my socks off. You have this Sherlock Holmes Lovecraftian universe. You've got deck building, area control with hidden identities, and you have this semi-cooperative thing where only the team that wins has the ability to have a specific person win, so only one person's going to win, but if your team loses, you don't even have a shot. That sounded so neat, and we got it to the table, and what I ended up finding is that the game was like 15 to 20% deck building, and then like 50 to 60% area control, and then a little bit of that hidden roles on top of it. It was quite hard to disguise really what your hidden role was. It was relatively easy for us to figure out who each person was, which was not that big of a deal, but ultimately it is a big old area majority game with a little bit of deck building on the side, and I just don't find area majority appealing at all. If you look behind me, you'll find pretty much 0 area majority games. 1 or 2 I'm kind of okay with, but it's just not compelling, and this game just did not work for me because of that. Fortunately, I was able to sell it to one of my friends, so it's still in our gaming group because a couple of my friends really enjoyed it. I mean, thematically, it was great. Those cards are so interesting, and the little bit of a deck building that it had seemed pretty fresh. You had some kind of cool ideas going on there, but ultimately, I just did not want to play a big, long area majority game. Number 2 is our last Kickstarter game of the list, and that is Roll Through the Ages, The Iron Age. Now, I was super excited about this one. I pretty much instantly backed it when it came out because you have this civilization theme, plus you have push your luck dice mechanics. I always wanted to play Roll Through the Ages of the Bronze Age, but I never got around to it, or I never really had the opportunity, so this kind of felt like my new opportunity to do that. Now, I understand that the Bronze Age was designed by Matt Leacock, and the Iron Age is designed by Thomas Lehman, so they're definitely different, and when I ended up jumping into the game, I was very disappointed by what I found. I actually didn't like this game so much that I never played it a second time. And one of the main reasons for that, and I know it's going to sound crazy because I only played it once, is it really felt like the core mechanic of the game where you have ports and you have provinces. It just did not seem very balanced. Now, I understand that the game is probably going to be different with 2, 3, and 4 players. I only played it with 2, and it's very likely that that balance is different with like 4 players, but it was just so obvious to me that ports seemed better. I wrote a post on Board Game Geek, and a whole bunch of people responded. Tom Lehman responded, and I don't think that they were necessarily wrong, but they did not do a very solid job of convincing me to really give the game another shot. I have so many great games that I want to play. I have so many games I'm super excited to try that when the game comes out and it just seems so transparently obvious that you should do the port strategy instead of the province strategy, that just isn't very fun. On top of that, even in a 2-player game, it seemed like it took a lot longer than I would like. I would be worried to play a 4-player game with this, especially considering there's nothing you can do when it's not your turn. There's no planning, there's no strategizing. I mean, there's the technologies, you can kind of think about what you might want to do, but it's pretty much just multiplayer solitaire, watching what the other people are going to do until it comes back around to you. I ultimately had no interest in playing it again, and I sold it off. And now the #1 disappointment from all the games that I sold, and that is Uchronia. Now, this is designed by Carl Chuddik, and I really like Carl Chuddick's games. I own Impulse, Innovation, I own Glory to Rome, and that's the biggest reason I was interested in Uchronia. The Glory to Rome I have is actually inside this poison box right here, because it's the original Cambridge Games edition that came in that terrible clamshell. Didn't even have a box. So it's in a poison box for some reason, and I was just very interested in the idea of Glory to Rome Light, where it was going to be a little bit easier to teach people, and it had this awesome, like, people and dinosaurs coexisting theme. I was just sold. The moment I heard about it, I went out, ordered it, and got it. And what I ended up getting was Glory to Rome watered down. And that's a pretty big difference between light and watered down, unfortunately. It was just not very compelling at all. It really didn't have any of those awesome, crazy combos. It just felt like it just kind of played, and you had these pretty pictures, but I didn't really care what I was doing, and I ended up playing it like 3 or 4 times, and ultimately had no interest in playing it again. It was just so blah. And it really surprised me with that amazing art and theme and designer. Ultimately, it is now gone, and I think I will just find myself continuing to play Glory to Rome. Also, I've heard there's a rumor that there's a new Kickstarter coming out soon for a new Glory to Rome light by Carl Chuddik called Montayanai. I'm definitely going to be looking into that one, but that is a tangent. So I sold all of these games, and when you combine the store credit I got from the auction and the games to my friends, I got way over $400, so that's pretty great. I have a new little budget for buying new games that I'm excited about grabbing. While I was at the live auction, I did pick up 4 games, which I'm pretty happy about, especially for the price I got them for. And so briefly, the first one that I got was Skyline. So that one is over here. And it is a push-your-luck game where you're building little skyscrapers. That's all I knew about it. I was like, I knew that there were dice with little building symbols on them, and it was push-your-luck, so I got it for a very cheap price. I played it once. It was really light, but I enjoyed it. I could look forward to playing that one a couple more times. The next one that I grabbed is Jamaica, and that one is right here. I've played a 4-player game of it subsequently, and I enjoyed it, but I think I'm really going to want to play 6 players with this game. I feel like you want more ships attacking each other. All I knew was that it was pretty and it was well rated. When I went in and bought the game for $21, which is a pretty good deal considering it's like $50 or $60 online, so I'm very happy with that pickup for sure. The third game I grabbed is Johari. It's hiding behind my head up here. And again, if you watch my BGGCon wrap-up, I had a lot of things to say about this game. I ultimately really liked it. I was really looking forward to playing it again, and I haven't yet, but now I have the opportunity. I did feel like the game played a little bit long when I played it at BGGCon, but now that I got the box and I read the rules, I realized that we probably played it wrong. At BGGCon, we played it with 12 turns when actually you're only supposed to play 10. So right there, the game was supposed to be a little bit shorter than I thought it was going to be. That just increases my interest and excitement in playing it again. And the #1 game that I was so excited to grab was El Gaucho. That one is right here, and I've actually just posted before this video a full run-through of this game, including that run-through. I played it 3 times, and I'm just really into it. I've been excited about this game since pretty much the first time I heard about it a few months ago, and I was fully anticipating buying it with my auction earnings. I was not expecting somebody to put it up for auction and for me to be able to grab it for only 29 bucks, like 3 months before it hits US distribution, so that was definitely the really big winner of the auction for me. So that pretty much wraps up this auction vlog. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're interested in watching more stuff like this, more full playthroughs and reviews and all this kind of stuff I do, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.